Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. We'll call to order the meeting of the Merrillville Town Council for June 9th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your patience, for wearing your masks, staying separated as we try and get through this pandemic together and safely. Do we have someone that can do our invocation this evening? Thank you. Good to see you.
Let us pray. Dear God, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come together again after all these weeks, Lord. I appreciate your hand upon our town of Merrillville, Lord, keeping it safe through this, Lord. I just pray, Lord, just to heal our land completely, Lord. Heal our land. Bring a calmness to the United States of America. Bless this council meeting tonight, Lord. I'm just asking, Lord, to guide and direct all of our council members, Lord. Give them direction, Lord. According to your will, we pray, Lord. Just let it be a good evening, Lord, for all the residents of the town of Merrillville. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for a moment of silence tonight.
Please remain standing for another moment of silence.
Please remain standing for another moment of silence, please.
Please remain standing for another moment of silence.
Please remain standing for another moment of silence. Thank you.
Please remain standing for another moment of silence, please.
Please remain standing for another moment of silence, please.
I'd ask that you continue to stand for the 8th moment of silence, please.
And finally, please remain standing for a final 46 seconds of silence. On behalf of the Town Council, Clerk Treasurer, and all associated with Merrillville Town Government, we wanted to show our solidarity this evening, along with fellow brothers and sisters across our nation, while we grieve not only for over 109,000 United States deaths due to the coronavirus pandemic, but also due to the tragic and senseless death of George Floyd, as well as others like him. Our moments of silence tonight represent the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that led to Mr. Floyd's death while in police custody in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We look forward to reforms that will stop these irrational incidents that plague our nation. Please join us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you. Madam Clerk Treasurer, would you please take the roll call this evening?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Span.
Present.
Mr. Hardaway.
Here.
Mr. Benchuk.
Here.
Mrs. Uzelak. Here. Mr. Pettit.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
Mr. Bella.
Here. Chief Coutinho, did you have an announcement tonight for us?
Yes, if I could, please.
Please.
On behalf of the Merrillville Police Department, I'd like to make a comment to the public. In the wake of the recent tragic incident, I'd like to speak with the public. The George Floyd incident and events that followed are things I never want to see happen again. I don't want to see it happen anywhere in this country, and definitely here in Merrillville. It's damaging to the relationship and trust between the public and the police. I want to do my part to help. Therefore, I give you my word that I will do everything within my power to make sure proper policies are put into place so our officers get properly trained. Not only trained, handle situations properly from a physical standpoint, but also recognize when something has gone wrong. I want my officers to know that they will have the power to intervene regardless of rape if they feel an injustice is occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So, Chief, you can remain standing because we're going to actually have a swearing in by Clerk Treasurer Kelly White Gibson. So, Chief Coutinho, please come forward. Right here, guys. Kelly, let's come up here in the center,
Be in the
please.
middle of it?
That'd be great. Thank you.
You raise your hand, please. Please repeat after me. I, Wiley Coutinho, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and honestly discharge my duties as the Merrillville Chief of Police of the town, according to the best of my skill and ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kelly.
You know what you want swearing your deputy again? Yes. I would like everyone to meet. This is my new assistant chief, Costas Newsons. Kelly, can you give an opportunity?
Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard.
Raise your right hand. Yeah, I, Costas Newsons, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and honestly
and honestly
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as the Assistant Chief or Deputy Chief of the Town of Merrillville.
to the Assistant Chief of the Town of Merrillville.
I'm sorry, Police. Assistant Chief. Assistant Chief. According to the best of my skills and abilities.
That's the my skill and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you guys. Congratulations to both of you, and we'll look forward to your great work ahead. Moving on tonight's agenda, we have a letter from the Town Engineering Administrator endorsing the Corps Construction's recommendations to approve payment. Steve King.
Yes, President Bella, the town professional staff, myself, have reviewed the April 2021 for the Merrillville Community Center, and we concur with Corps Construction recommendations and approving application payment number 5 on $1,117,134.51.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Pettit, seconded by Mr. Minchuk for approval of this claims list. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same sign. The motion carries. One other item that's not on the agenda, but I would like to read it and just open it tonight, actually, is we have a letter from the St. Andrews Women's Club. So, dear Mr. Bella, thank you for communication regarding the Safe Haven baby box. We are hopeful that this donation helps to get this goal accomplished in a timely manner. We appreciate and are grateful for this worthy endeavor. Sincerely, St. Andrews Women's Club, Tammy Forbes, Tracy Bonnick, Tina Davitt, Natalie Hofspan, Jane Modak, Evelyn Ryan, Mary Lou Matsu, Betty Carrillo, and Carrie Martinez. Madam Clerk Treasurer, I have a check for you tonight for $1,000 toward the baby box.
Hey.
I thought we give that to the fire department.
No, it's going to be installed at the fire department.
Oh, it will be installed there. Okay. How much will it cost? Do we know?
I think it's around 14 or so.
1,400?
14,000.
14,000
Yeah.
for the baby box?
So moving on tonight to the consent agenda, we have the accounts payable voucher for approval for June 9th and the approval of the town council meeting minutes of May 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, second by Mr. Pettit for approval of the consent agenda as submitted. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Standing committees tonight, Budget and Finance, Mr. White.
Thank you. And not a whole lot going on with the Budget and Finance Committee at this time. I do know that budget time is coming up for department heads to kind of start getting ready to work with the clerk treasurer to get your budgets so you can do what you need to do for your particular department. Beyond that, at this time, I have nothing else to add from the Budget and Finance Committee.
Thank you. Public Works Department, Mr. Minchuk.
I have nothing new. I know last I talked to the director, I think he's here with us tonight. They were very eager to get back full throttle here soon. So once they get back full throttle, hopefully get things a little bit back to normal. I know some people are getting a little irritable with the way things have been, and we're trying our hardest to get back full throttle. Did you have anything to add, boss? Nope. All right.
And thank you. Council Affairs, Mrs. Uselak.
I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. How about Personnel Policy and Employee Benefits, Marge?
Well, yes, we did have several meetings, excuse me, and the most special one was for the appointment of our police chief. And that had taken place at our last personnel policy meeting. And that's all I have to report on that.
Thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Minchuk.
Obviously, we have a new police chief and a new assistant chief, and I think they're both going to be great additions to our town and very beneficial to our town. So thank you, gentlemen, for helping us serve there. I know Chief Petrush currently is finishing out the month helping train our new chief, so thank you to him for that as well. We do have some works in the plans for future public safety things, but I would like to inform the rest of the council before we proceed any further. So hopefully at a future meeting we'll be able to go further with that. That is all I have, sir.
Very good. I would like to add to your report, Jeff, that we've been talking about a proper send-off for both Chief Petrush and Assistant Chief Donahue, and we look forward to doing that at a future meeting, probably in July. Right.
Mr. President?
Mr. White.
Just a question in the terms of when I know Mr. Minchuk, the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, we got together and we did actually a term, like an administrative consultant. When would we think that we need to just change that over and give all full powers to the police chief?
That's also spelled out in that temporary order.
Yes.
That will expire at the end of this month when Chief Petrush retires.
Thank you. That's the question I had.
Okay. Very good. Parks and Recreations, Mrs. Uslak?
Yes, since we've had so much rain this last month, the Public Works has been slow and the Park Department has been slow in mowing down the grass. So we have parks with a lot of grass at this time, but they will be getting to it soon. I've had a report on Jennings Street in Southbrook with very high grass, and that park was bought by a private owner. So we are contacting him to get that grass taken care of too. And that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Environmental Affairs, Mr. White.
Yes, sir. As Vice President, I'd like to take that hat off for a second and put on my environmental hat. That's my entire background. I would like to talk to everyone today about the COVID-19 testing, even though our town administrator, town manager had touched on it a little bit. I want to talk about the testing event scheduled for June 11th to June 14th. I think we went with the dates there once from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. But first, I'd like to thank Governor Holcomb, our governor of Indiana, Dave McCormick with the Indiana State Department of Health, and Dr. Chandra Vavilila. That's the best I can pronounce her name. She's the medical doctor for the Lake County Health Department. And also to President Bell, who asked me to take on this task, and at least 20 more people that actually helped. A lot of people helped put this thing together. We really want to let our community know we do care about you. That's why we're trying to get these numbers. If we don't have numbers, we can't respond to anything. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we're trying to get this COVID testing, and then we can move on with some other activities, because there's a second round of testing, specifically a different type of testing, which I can't share with you tonight, but in a couple of weeks I'll be ready to share that with you. But I think it'll be a little bit more expanded, and that way we can evaluate what we're getting this coming up 11th to the 14th with what we're going to be doing in the near future. So Merrillville residents are actually the primary target of this, but other communities can also come in. As long as you have an Indiana State ID or Indiana driver's license, you're also from other communities are welcome to our testing site here in Merrillville. So what we're asking is people to pass the word. This is very important to us. Seriously, COVID-19 is not over. And I know people are looking like it is, and I'm anxious to get back out there myself, but it's not over. That's why we're all sitting here with masks on right now, because we do have some knowledge that we haven't cleared the field there yet. So with that said, I don't have anything else, I think, to add to that. And now I'm going to put back on my Vice President hat. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I would like to add that the testing will be for symptomatic individuals that are also healthcare workers, first responders, essential workers, and or are in a high-risk category due to age, weight, or underlying conditions. This opportunity is also for individuals that live in the same residence as one of the priority categories. So for Indiana residents only, and must show a valid driver's license. Okay. Anything else, Mr. White?
That's it, President Bella.
Thank you. Moving on to elections, public relations, and census 2020. Mr. Pettit.
Mr. President, obviously with the pandemic going on, the census is kind of taking a hit, unfortunately. However, you can do it online, and no one needs to come to your door. I think Nick Elliott had sent you and I a couple of emails that they're going to try to get some training going for the later summer months where they can do some follow-up. But the best I can give you folks is just do it online. It is extremely important for the town of Merrillville for funding, for streets, for the roads, for drainage. We need to get an accurate count. We are currently, as best to my knowledge, we are still the largest town in Indiana, and we want to keep that. We are growing. We want to encourage everyone to come to Merrillville. We want to keep our kids here to stay and grow up here. So we want to make sure we have the best of everything for them, and that starts with this census and getting an accurate number and accurate count. So continue to go online. As Rick and I get information, they may be coming door to door as things get relaxed with the pandemic. We haven't really heard confirmatory yet on that, so that's the best we have right now.
Thank you. Economic development, back to you, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, we have a redevelopment commission meeting immediately following the town council meeting for a couple of items. Outside of that, I do not have anything right now. I know we have several projects that Mr. Reardon is working on in town with developers, particularly down at Ameriplex at the Crossroads. And as Pat updates us, we will call a committee meeting on those.
Mr. Pettit, would you like to update the council on the field house progress?
The field house tonight, there was a resolution on the agenda to the town council is the third step in a four-step process to separate out the field house property from Ameriplex at the Crossroads, creating its own mini TIF district, if you will. Therefore, when the redevelopment acts on this June 23rd, it will be final, and then we will have our town manager and town attorney prepare a request for proposals to buy the building. We will then take the proceeds from that sale of the building. We have one debt that we have to pay off, which is $950,000. The remaining money has been outlined by our financial advisor and bond counsel, will be set aside as the operating seed money for the community center when that opens hopefully March 1st of next year. So there is a resolution on the agenda tonight for that activity. We have had the appraisals done. Joe Svetnoff has had the appraisals done. We know what the minimum is that we have to get. Obviously, we'd like to ask and get a little bit more from a private entity that might be interested in warehousing, distribution, something that would be suitable for what's out there at Ameriplex at the Crossroads right now.
Could you explain the $950,000 debt for the public to know?
Oh, certainly, Councilman Uselak. What we did back, time gets away from me, having been on the council 17 years, but about 6-7 years ago, we were approached by a Korean pharmaceutical company that wanted to manufacture a self-contained IV bag, and they wanted to be in Merrillville because of our proximity to I-65 and 2 Chicago hospitals. They targeted the old field house building, which was built by a private individual, Mark Layden, and had 8 basketball courts in it, has a center mezzanine in it. And what we decided to do as a redevelopment commission is take out a bond issue and pair that up with $1.5 million worth of certified tech park money that the town received. And we bought the building for $3.2 million. Again, this has been about 6 or 7 years ago that we did this. We flipped the building to the Purdue Research Foundation, which owns property out there at Ameriplex at the Crossroads. They continued to pay property taxes on the building, and they were going to lease it to the Korean pharmaceutical company. Well, unfortunately, the Korean pharmaceutical could not get their funding, and we had been paying down the bond issue with the property taxes that Purdue was paying to the town of Merrillville. So it was, what we thought was going to be a good deal. Unfortunately, as I said, the pharmaceutical company couldn't get their financing, and part of the agreement was that Purdue would return the building to the town of Merrillville. Mr. Svetnov handled that, closing that transaction. We do own that building and that parcel. We have an outstanding debt service. As Clerk Treasurer Kelly White Gibson can attest, we owe about $950,000 on that particular bond issue. Now, full disclosure, we have other bond issues that are out there at Ameriplex that the Redevelopment Commission did to build Georgia Street, Connecticut, 99th Place, the areas around the Purdue Technology Center and Ivy Tech. So there is other debt out there that's associated with the Broadway TIF district, but this will be one debt that's paid off, Councilwoman Uzelak, as we sell the building and alleviate that from our records. So that's a benefit to us.
Thank you, Sean.
Mr. President?
Mr. White.
Yes, I'm listening to Sean, and I'm going where he's going with most of this. But if I can make a motion to actually put in the fact that we do pay the $950,000 as the debt. Secondly, an additional $700,000 to go for the operation, the first year operation of the community center, and that we just bring the rest of those dollars back to the town to look at other debt until we can find out where we're totally going. So at least we can get you a year going here, and I think that buys you a little time to find out how we're going to continue to pay for the operation of that facility, the recreation center. Thank you.
Are we allowed, Sean, to put that money into the town that is left over after the debt?
No, it has to.
I did not think so.
It has to go back. The way that this is set up by Tom Pittman of Barnes and Thornburg, right, and Bob Swentz from London Witty, we pay off the $950,000. Anything that's left over either has to go back into the Broadway TIF district, or it can go toward the operating, the way they've set this resolution up, these resolutions we're passing.
Yes.
It can go into the operating for the community center. Now, we have not, the committee, Leonard and Jeff and I have not gotten together with Jan to come back to the council and present this to you folks yet, but it's always been estimated, and please take that word for what it's worth. It's estimated that the annual budget to operate the community center would be anywhere from $600,000 to $750,000 a year. That's going to depend on utilities. That's going to depend on supplies that Jan needs. That's going to depend on memberships that she gets, different things, events, tournaments, things like that. That can fluctuate. So, you know, even if we sold it for the minimum that we can get, we would have in excess $2 million that we could put toward the operating of the community center, which, using that math, is almost 3 years of operating the community center with not having to really, that gives her a chance to build up I guess they'd be called non-reverting, right, Jan? The programs and the leasing of the community space and the tournaments that we want to have. And we've had initial conversations very briefly with Pop Warner. You know, there's still, as you guys know, near and dear to my heart, volleyball clubs that are interested in possibly renting space. So there's a lot of things there. But this is a guaranteed set aside where we don't have to worry about that. That was one of the initial questions that was raised here with the newer council members that came on and the new clerk treasurer that came on in January and February is asking about the operating. Again, Margie, you and I and Jeff and Richard and Don were around when we did the feasibility study and we did the bond issues last year that were contentious, understandably. But I think that what John Kennedy, Structure Point, and Core have done out there is going to be an absolute diamond in Northwest Indiana, and people are going to come to this thing, and Jan will not have a problem renting out that community room or filling that thing up one bit. Many of you have been by it, I'm sure. I go by it once a week. I can't say enough about the Core guys and what they've done. So you guys kind of know I'm biased.
You know what? We have never discussed anything like police security. Will we have police security in the community center?
That would be one thing as we get down. Yeah, we're going to have to discuss that at the committee level and the council level and work with our new chief to figure out, how we're going to handle that.
Good.
There are cameras that will be going inside as well, Marge.
Okay, very good. for security.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor by Mr. White to use $700,000 of the proceeds from the field house sale to fund the community center for the first year.
That's correct, Mr.
that correct?
President.
He'll have to correct his motion.
Yeah,
He also added in it to give the money, the additional money that was left over back to the town.
Yeah, you cannot do that.
That goes back into the TIF district.
Could I ask, Mr. President, could I ask to Mr. White that we delay this discussion until we get to the resolution?
Yeah.
And we can dive into that with legal counsel, if that's okay?
That's fine, Mr. President. I'd like to retract my motion.
Okay, thank you, Leonard. Utility Liaison Committee, Mr. Span. Anything tonight, Don?
No.
Thank you. Abandoned Properties, Mr. White.
Yes, Mr. President. I actually wanted to thank the code enforcement for making some real progress in my ward. There's a couple of buildings, specifically the one that was burnt out. If you look at it now, you can never tell it was burnt out, and that's because they set fire up under the owners. And they're working on it, and they're trying to sell that building. Secondly, Mr. President, the building that's on Taft Street that's been covered with tarps for years, the owner finally has been contacted and has agreed to make repairs. So I just wanted to give big ups to Tiffany and Vicky for doing such a good job. That thing's been out there a lot of years, and I think it'll make my residential ward look better. So in terms of abandoned properties, those were the two highlights. Secondly, and I wanted to make sure that, because I know we try to respect each other's ward, but being on the abandoned properties, there are 2 properties or 2.5 properties on 57th and Harrison that's been sitting there. I did talk to our town administrator about it to see if there were any environmental problems on that corner property. It's a former gas station, and he asked, and I did see the document that he sent to the former owners asking had they did any remediation, because when you close down gas station, you have underground leaking storage tanks. So from my own experience as an environmental guy, I know if you still got concrete over something, they didn't do anything there. So I think didn't want to step on the next council person's area, but I didn't know any other way how to reach out for the abandoned properties committee.
Whose district is it in, Mr. White?
It's in Councilman Hardaway's district.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. President, I guess to Jeff, and I know Jeff, Pat called me on this. Pat, can you give us an update as to where we're at with the carriage house properties?
Thank you.
Yes, I can.
That's it's actually in Jeff's ward.
As the council may remember, the town was awarded approximately $147,000 from the Lake County Economic Development Department. And we have worked with the department. We developed bid specifications. Those bid specifications have been publicized. We are anticipating receiving bids at the end of this month. We will be requesting a special meeting of the Redevelopment Commission, where at that meeting we hope to make a recommendation on an award. We have until the end of July to invoice Lake County for that money. I've had a conversation with Bob Swentz about identifying other dollars that are uncommitted that could be used if need be, where the demolition were to exceed that grant from the county. Again, I'd be remiss if I didn't compliment Steve King on his help here. He's really run with the ball, and we're looking forward to taking those properties down. Town Attorney Svetnoff continues to work hard with Lake County, where ideally at the time of demolition we're able to take the third property, which is immediately west of the 2 parcels we own at 73rd and Madison. But if we have to wait to get ownership, then so be it. But we'll be prepared to take all 3 down.
and looking forward to in August coming back to the town, the commission, and crafting a request for proposal on what to do with that property. Certainly that will involve the planning and building department, on zoning, what type of business, what type of investor the town wants there. What's the highest and best reuse of that site?
Just a question, that third and last parcel, do we have a rough time, do we think that'll happen within the next couple, 2-3 months, or?
What we are doing is we're working with the owner. I'm in contact with the owner. It's Gary's time to try to have them deed over that third parcel of property so we can take down an effective all the buildings in one fell swoop. I've been periodically getting responses back from him, continue to deal with him. I'm also in contact with Matt Fetch, who's the Lee County attorney, on potentially having the county either assign over a tax deed to that third parcel, because the taxes still remain unpaid, or at least a tax sale certificate. If you were to get a tax deed, we'd have possession of it immediately. If we get a tax sale certificate, we'd have to go through the noticing process, and that takes 6 months at least.
Gotcha.
So, and we have to wait then to get a court order. So that'll take some time. So the two best scenarios are either getting direct deed ownership from the owner, or getting ownership directly from the county through a tax sale. The third option still would get us ownership, but it'd be strung out a little bit. The good part about having the matter maybe strung out a little bit is it still remains there, but we could reapply for community block grant money.
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah.
So we have some options there. We're going to continue to work hard to get that third parcel so we can hopefully have an effective takedown with all.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Moving on to standing committees, continuing Town Identity and Beautification Committee, Mrs. Uzelak.
No, I have not had a meeting yet, Mr. President. With the virus and all of the other meetings, I just haven't gotten around to this one. But I think we will sometimes in July.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. President?
Mr. White?
Yes, I'm a member of Marge Uzelak's committee, Town Identity and Beautification. And what came to my attention was the governor of Indiana signed new legislation in, it's called Senate Enroll Act 566-2019. It's called Residential Housing and TIF Districts. I don't think that's something we tried here yet. I don't know, maybe Sean knows because he's the TIF guy. But but no, in a sense, I want to see if we could use that same output with the residential TIF district so I can get curbs, sidewalks, streets done, lighting done, beautification. That's part of the beautification. I sit on that committee. So there is and I briefly talked to Pat about it. He's the actual TIF guy. I'm trying to be a TIF guy.
Okay.
Well, when we have a meeting in July, Leonard, you could look up what you're talking about from Indianapolis and Governor Holcomb.
Yes, I have
and
actually.
If we have some type of approval for our lighting, our curbs, and our streets, we'll go over it. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No
more questions.
Leonard wants a TIF in his district, Sean.
Well, I know that, but you know the interesting thing is, I'm sure Mr. Reardon will concur, is that when you create a TIF district, which was done, Rick, when you were on the council back before in '95 when Tim Brown and Tom Kyleman were here, is you're notifying the 4 other taxing entities and getting them to sign off, because we get 100%. We doesn't go to the schools anymore, and you start creating a TIF district in a residential area. If you got a good relationship with the school board, God love you, because we're going to be taking that 51% away from Merrillville School Corporation and the county and the township and the library.
Fire territory.
Actually,
you've got to get a lot of approvals.
Certainly. And
to a residential TIF district.
And I'm willing to step out there and ask those individuals, and I'm willing to see some other communities, other parts or a taxing district lose dollars if it helps my area, that's what I'm here for.
Well, and keep in mind, as we're about to talk about, though, Leonard, in this resolution and with any TIF district, it has to be spent, the money raised in a TIF district has to be spent inside that district.
That district.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I'm telling you that I think that's going to be.
Which I understand your need for
yes,
the projects, right?
Yeah.
You would spend it in that.
Even with the, not cutting you off, Sean, but even with the community block grants, we want to see some kind of activity there. It's pretty bad over there, and that's the oldest part. Looks like it anyway. It's the oldest part of Merrillville, and we really do need help over there to make that area look good. I like to see it look like your area, Sean, even though I know that's not going to happen because wonderful area.
Well, and one thing we've done in the past since I've been on the council, Leonard, and now Rick is in Ward 5, and before that it was Joe Shudick and Chrissy Barron. We would do our paving out of the TIF districts that encompass Ward 5 and Ward 6, and then the remaining money would be divvied up by the other 5 wards according to need, based on the pavement management system that we've got in place. So, that's. Is it really?
Yeah, it's about to hit.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Where?
So let's go ahead and slow down on the TED Talk on TIF districts for tonight.
Yeah.
And move through. But I can tell that you've all missed really being together at a meeting and talking, so that's a good thing.
This conversation is pent up.
So Mr. Minchuk and Mr. Pettit, is it an actual warning? So tornado's been cited?
It takes shelter now.
A warning.
Okay.
Want me to give like a full weather report like Tom Skilling?
Yes.
Well, maybe like report where it is, if it's in.
I'm looking at it now, hang on.
Says it's in effect till 8 o'clock.
Can we hang out around the
Central
banks
Lake
or-
County,
Right.
northwestern Indiana,
That's close. Okay.
till 8 o'clock. I think we can continue though. I'll keep everybody safe.
Okay, Mr. Minchuk and Mr. Pettit, Community and Recreation Center. A lot of talk tonight on that. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. President, if you don't mind, Jeff, we talked about these in the committee meeting.
All right, Sean.
One of the items on the agenda that we talked about at the committee meeting was, again, the Structure Point design fees for the kitchen area. We have an existing design contract with Structure Point. This would be an addendum for $13,000 for them to go through the kitchen design and finalize that so we can get the warming kitchen put in the community center. So I would make that motion that we amend Structure Point's contract to include the $13,000 for the kitchen design.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk to approve the $13,000 kitchen design change. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Your motion carries, Mr. Pettit.
Thank you. Also, Mr. President, we talked about the sports field crowning, another addendum to the Structure Point contract for an additional $3,000. I would make that motion.
I would like to second it. It was very beneficial in so many ways, sir.
A motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk for the $3,000 of the crowning of the football or field area. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Mr. Pettit.
That is all I have on the community center for right now, Mr. President.
Very good. Any department head reports this evening from department heads?
I just have a comment.
Jan.
Marge, I want to let you know that Kevin and I have met, and Public Works will start the installation of Crescent Lake Park very soon.
Oh, very good.
And just so everybody's aware, Forest Hills Park, to get into the park, which is off of Indian Trail, there you have to walk over a ditch, so there's a culvert, and a sinkhole was created. I notified Stormwater, they will have somebody out there, but until that is repaired, the park is closed. And Public Works had caution taped it off for me today.
And they haven't been able to mow lately neither, correct?
Well, yeah, let's not forget that we have not hired absolutely anybody in the park department to mow it all, so we're all relying on Public Works, and I know that they're very strapped. So we get some phone calls into the park department too, and we let people know what's going on, and about everybody has been very understanding with us.
Very good.
Because of the virus and everything else, so.
Yeah, I have a question for Steve. Steve, that call I gave you the other day regarding that home with the curb
Yes.
They had complained about the curb.
Yep.
Did you find out what that was all about?
Yeah, I did talk to them. They wanted to know, as a matter of fact, it was across the street from the park.
Right by the park.
Worried about the grass. I talked to him about that. I gave that information to Vicky. He was wanting to know when their street was going to be paved. We talked about there's some residents down the street for them where the road was already paved, their curb was depressed, and I explained to them, so due to the COVID, we're kind of in a holding pattern with our paving projects to see where we're going to be at financially. He didn't have a complaint, it was just curiosity of, when things might get done. Actually, the streets in really good condition.
That's good.
The curb was paved into a little bit, but he didn't have any complaints about drainage or anything. He just curious.
Okay, well, was there something seriously wrong with the curb?
No.
That he questioned me on it?
No, their street had been paved in a long time.
Okay.
Gutter was paved into it, and he was just wondering, when we're gonna get to it, and we did. So I explained to him how we grade our streets and things like that, and, we're public streets and pretty good shape, and I financially we're.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Reardon.
Yes, Mr. President. I'm pleased to inform the council that, and I'll read verbatim from this memo. It's a memo from Tim Brown, Executive Director, Lake County Community Economic Development Department. If you are receiving this memo, then Merrillville has been awarded up to $16,765 in COVID-19 CARES funding from the Lake County Community Economic Development Department. All purchases back to March 30th, 2020 are eligible for reimbursement, provided the funds were specifically used to prevent, prepare, or respond to the COVID panic. So I look forward to working with the clerk treasurer. As you know, staff across the board has tagged COVID expenditures, if you will. So this is a welcome grant. It's a little bit of work on our side, but a welcome grant.
Thank you for that, Pat.
You're welcome.
Moving on to general orders tonight, we have a first reading ordinance 20-10. Madam Clerk Treasurer.
I actually would defer to council.
Okay.
Who could better explain this ordinance.
Town council members, this is a ordinance basically expanding our police commission, which is currently at 3 members, to membership of 5. Within the ordinance itself, it sets out not only that it should be expanded to 5, but that some of the requirements are for the members themselves. So it's a pretty straightforward ordinance, again, just expanding the police commission from 3 members to 5. And that's allowable under statute.
And repealing the...
And repealing the other ordinances which may be in conflict.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Smetnoff. I think we've talked about this quite a few times. Is there a motion to approve on first reading?
Mr. President,
Mr. White.
I'd like to make a motion to accept.
Second.
You have a motion to approve, second by Mr. Span.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments on the motion? This is a first reading, no required public hearing, but I do would like a roll call, please. Madam Clerk Treasurer?
Sure. Councilman Span?
Yes.
Councilman Hardaway?
Abstain.
Councilman Minchart?
Yes.
Councilwoman Uzelak?
Yes.
Councilman Pettit?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
And Councilman Bella?
Yes.
I have a question.
Wait, can I interject? Real quick? I'm sorry.
6-0, 1 abstention, motion carries.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I'm like a weather dork. For anybody in the audience that would like to go home, there is a warning going on right now.
Oh.
There was a funnel cloud spotted in Illinois. They're saying this storm's going to hit Merrillville by about 7:45, 7:50. So just for anybody who's here that wants to go home, I'll let you know right now.
Thank you, Mr. Minchak.
And everybody.
Yeah,
Gotta stay, March.
we're going to be done very shortly.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. President, that being said, let's kind of expedite our activities here.
Doing the best I can here, Mr.
Okay, I
Bennett.
just had one question on
Miss-
this by member.
okay.
I'll make it real quick.
Sure.
Are we going to, after it's approved on the second reading, are we going to take applications for the police commissioners?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Like
and
we always-
that comes in front of the council.
Oh, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Moving on to resolutions. We see none on the agenda tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one. Resolution 20-19, a resolution of the town of Merrillville approving certain amenities to the declaratory resolution and economic development plan for the Broadway Economic Development Area and related matters. Mr. Pettit, related to this this evening, what is your pleasure, council?
Make a motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, seconded by Mrs. Uselak for approval of Resolution 20-19. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to BZA actions tonight, we do have Landmark Sign Group. The request is from the Bricklayers Union. It's a variance of use approval to allow a LED message center at 7985 Marshall Street in a C3 highway commercial zoning district. Ms. Sheila Shine, would you like to just give us a very brief explanation of this?
Yes, petitioner is requesting a variance of use approval of section 21-189A to allow LED electronic message center to be located at 7985 Marshall Street in the C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District. Petitioner would like to erect a sign with a 3x10 electronic message center onto a monument sign. The total square footage would be 142.5. Petitioner would like to promote upcoming union events and post-union job openings. Petitioner will promote town events when requested.
Is the petitioner here? Would you please approach the front and use this microphone here at the center of the table in case there's any questions. Council members, any questions for this petitioner?
Yes. You said upcoming events will be posted on the LED sign?
Yes,
Okay, that sounds very good. Right by the Union Building, the bricklayers.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, to Sheila, were there any remonstrators in the audience at the BZA?
Not for the LED message center.
Okay. What were they?
There was some question about the size of the height.
The size, they went through a variance for developmental standards that doesn't come before the council.
Right.
But they went through a variance for developmental standards, and there was, a remonstrance.
Okay.
Real quick, I hate to elongate this, but would this fall under, I think we had an ordinance or something with the town emergencies we'd be able to display. Would this fall under that?
They have to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they planned on cooperating and putting
I'm
up
sure,
community
yeah.
events and
Yeah.
whatever
This
else.
is your ward, isn't it?
What's your pleasure, sir?
Want a motion to approve or what?
I guess I'm still confused on the height. Did we change the height of the sign from?
No, the main concern was that the sign was taller than the building. And before I came over here, I stopped there and measured. It is not taller than the building.
Okay, that was a perception. I didn't think it was.
The monument sign per code is 100 square foot per side. This sign is going to be 1.42, 142.5 per side, including the LED message center.
For 42 square feet.
So
Okay.
that's why they went through the variance for developmental standards.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval. Any questions or comments?
Mr. President, I do have a short
Right.
question. The intensity of the brightness of the sign, even though even during the daytime, there's a level of brightness from a lot of these LED signs. Are you guys going to have a situation where you can lower the intensity if it was needed?
Yes, the brand that they're using, Watchfire, does automatically dim in the evening, and if need be, it can be adjusted more.
Thank you, Mr. President. No more questions.
Very good.
It's a great question.
Yes.
Hearing no other comments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Moving on tonight to Town of Merrillville as a petitioner. The owner is the Town of Merrillville. Variance of use approval to allow an LED electronic message center at 6600 to 6680 Broadway. This is at the new community center location in a C3 highway commercial zoning district. Mr. Pettit, do you have a motion for us?
Now, this will be Ward
I would,
3.
yeah, if you want Sheila to read I'll make a motion.
Mr. Minchuk, you're
That's
picking
right.
the color. You want to approve the sign too?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's
Mr.
my
Minchuk,
ward.
do you have a motion for us?
My word, I'll listen. Sheila, if you want to go ahead and give a really brief description, that'll be fine.
To allow LED access center to be located at 6680 Broadway in the C3 highway commercial. Petitioner would like to erect a freestanding pylon sign with a decorative graphic. The sign will be 28.6 high and 5 by 5 feet, 5 inches by 9 feet, 3 inches LED message board. The total sign square footage, which includes the message board and the logo, will be 130.83. The town of Merrillville will promote activities for the community center and other town events. The sign inclusion will be an enhancement to Broadway Quarter.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I would like to make
Mr.
a motion to approve this sign that will be in the heartbeat of this town, which is Ward 3. And I would also like the color swatches to be dropped off in my mailbox.
I'll second that, Jeff.
So under discussion, I have a question. What color will the sign be?
That would be up to the councilman from Ward 3, sir.
Is the petitioner here tonight? Is that you?
That would be me.
You're not the
Do you have a question?
Oh, I don't.
Well, then you have to tell us the color tonight if we okay this, Jeff.
We haven't determined.
We do realize Jeff reported there's a tornado warning out here, guys, right?
I'm like,
am I the
I'm
only one that
hearing
got
it
through,
everywhere,
or
We have seen
motion
that.
on the floor in a second? Let's.
We're good. Thank you. Is there any other question or comment on the motion by Mr. Minchuk in Ward 3 and seconded by Mr. Pettit?
Call for a vote, please.
Call for a vote. All in favor? Signify by
Aye.
saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Your motion carries, Town of Merrillville, Mr. Minchuk.
Thank you.
Old business, any old business before us this evening? Seeing none, new business, any new business before us tonight? Public comment, any public comment this evening? If you have a public comment, please step forward. Give us your name, address at the center microphone, and we're allowing 2 minutes for public comment tonight.
Real quick before this gentleman speaks, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because I know time is of the essence here. With the rain coming, I know Turkey Creek has had major issues with flooding.
Yes.
We have been in contact with Merrillville Conservancy District. They do have a temporary plan in action as we speak, and then they have a long-term permanent plan that's hopefully going to permanently correct and help our problems that we're having. Please give them some time. As I said, the temporary action is turning as we speak. They're actually working on that now. Hopefully that will alleviate some of our problems, but we are in the right direction. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Kervin Charles, and me and my wife and 7-year-old daughter, we live at 518 West 76th Avenue in Madison Meadows. And two things, over like the last year or so, there's a house, a couple of houses down from us that I think it's I think they're selling drugs out of the house. The address is 554 West 76th Avenue. The builder, Van Prillion, I mentioned it a year ago. I said, what's going on with that house? And she said, what, you mean the drug house? I called the police, about it a few weeks ago. I left a message for a detective, didn't get a call back. I called the drug line, didn't get a call back. About a year ago, all our houses look the same because it's a subdivision.
Yeah.
And people come knocking on our door, strangers looking for the other house. I see cars driving by slowly, trying to figure out the address. And I'm like, okay, well, they're going to the other house. And I'm right. So I'm concerned about that because my 7-year-old daughter, she rides her bike past the house and things like that, and we're concerned. So that's number one. Number two is there's a stop sign by 76th and Madison, and there's a hill, and people fly through the stop sign all the time. There's a pond where me and my daughter hang out, and cars almost get in accidents there all the time because people fly through the stop sign. I believe it's because they don't see it coming over the hill from 73rd, going towards 30, yeah. They don't see the stop sign, and it's very dangerous. Like just yesterday, a car coming out of 76th Avenue almost got hit by a car coming down the hill, and it probably would have. I'm concerned about it careening, into the pond or hurting us. So those are the two things.
If you could do me a favor, I'll make sure this gets looked into for sure. If you can meet up with our chief or our assistant chief after the meeting, and they can talk to you about the first problem. Second problem, we'll have somebody take a look at that for you and do a study for you. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? It's a 2-minute clock. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Pastor. Good evening, I'm Pastor Edward Sims, resident of Merrillville from Sedona. I had a couple of concerns. First, I want to congratulate our new chief. First time getting to meet him, my daughter told me that she knows your daughter, so I'm glad that you're here. Glad to meet you. Hope to get to know you a little bit better. To all of our council, good evening, and our clerk, and all of you. I had concern, given the fact that what's going on in the country, just ended the funeralization of George Floyd today. I haven't heard anything from the town of Merrillville about where you stand when it comes to Black Lives Matter. I'm currently the treasurer of the Coalition of Pastors, the Twin City Ministerial Alliance, and I'm past president of the Coalition of Pastors. These are the things that we are greatly concerned about. And I know I am from the perspective that as a Merrillville resident, I'm concerned about where our town council stands when it comes to Black Lives Matter. I haven't seen anything in the paper on your nice, beautiful sign out there that says where you all stand. And I think as a community, that it is important and imperative that some kind of statement be made. I don't want to wait till something happens and then we come talking about how we feel about Black Lives Matter. I know it's here because I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it right here in this town, in this city, through our police department prior. I can recall just as faintly a conversation. I made a phone call to the police department, and whoever answered thought they had hung up, and the guy says, "Who was that?" And they said, "Oh, them people from the subdivision over behind Myers." And I could hear him saying, "Oh, we don't have to worry about that. They'll be tore up before long." I was president 6 years, and I made sure that our community stayed up so that we would not be labeled as people who come in and tear up. But I'm interested in knowing you all's perspective, where you stand when it comes to Black Lives Matter, and all lives does matter. Please don't get me wrong. All lives matter, but Black lives do matter. We're 44.4% Black in Merrillville. And I would hope that we would have something to say that other cities and towns are saying on this level. And for us not to have some kind of statement, I just don't want it to get swept under the rug and we not have a definite that we do matter and where we pay our taxes, where we live, because I'm the parent of 3 children and I have 1 black son. And I want to make sure that when I go to sleep, my son is okay. I've dealt with it, and I won't even talk about it because that's past, even in our police department, with things that I've had to deal with, and I had to check a police because he didn't know who I was or that I was a pastor. And when I did check him, one of the other guys said, "Leave him alone, we know him." But he threatened to arrest me because somebody had spiked my daughter's, gave her a brownie, and my daughter don't take an aspirin. And anyhow, the police, they tackled her, and I stopped them. I said, wait. But I was talking to the young lady because I wanted her to tell what she gave him. And he walked up on me to arrest me, and I had them to call the chief of police then. I ain't scared of nobody. But I won't back down when we're right. I would hope that we would make a statement, and to our ward councilman, we're proud. That side now is pretty much getting to be predominantly black. With the apartments, Sedona is probably one of the biggest black subdivisions. So we want to hear a statement from the town, and we want to hear it soon. We want to know where you stand. Does our lives matter? Is it enough to put on the board, and not just by cliche? I want it to mean what you say. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you, sir.
Reverend Sims, were you here this at the beginning of the meeting where we had our 8 moments of silence in 46 seconds?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't. Okay, well then I have a copy here for you of what was actually stated this evening, and I'll leave it here for you after the meeting. You can come and get it, sir. Okay?
You would put something to the public.
Well, we did that tonight.
Fine.
Okay.
But after the 8 minutes, where do we go from there?
Mr. Pat, would you mind?
Chief, he didn't
Thank you,
hear the
Reverend.
chief's statement either.
Yeah, if you have yours also in type format, or could you provide it,
If you have
Chief
yours, check.
Coutinho?
The new chief did make a statement, Reverend Sims, but
I'm sorry
I
you missed
came in
those
after.
earlier
I think
on.
you missed that.
Any other public comment this evening?
I'll pick up the wrong question.
Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Announcements, Mr. President?
I don't have any announcements except the town council meeting on the 23rd.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. President, before the tape stops and people disband, because
Motion-
of the weather.
A motion by
Motion,
Mrs.
second.
Ulex on the floor. All in
Second.
favor signify by saying aye.
All right. Due to the weather, I'm immediately going to call to order the meeting of the Merrillville Redevelopment Commission. Mr. Secretary.